Well, hello YouTube, it's me, Fortmaster, and welcome back to a Zaktact reaction and more Lancer lore. So this is Lancer lore, the setting basics, which, I'm a little confused why this wasn't literally the first video in the playlist, but, okay, well, I mean, there's the intro, so at least, why wasn't this the second video in the playlist? I'm guessing, well, actually, no, both of those were backstory, now we're actually getting to the main, the main brunt of the setting itself. So, okay, yeah, never mind. That makes more sense. So, I mean, there was a very quick and dirty overview in, the intro to the world of Lancer. And, about, the Eldritch computer stuff and the mech combat. And then the last video was about the fall of humanity and, how the other civilization and factions became a thing and how the Union became. So now we get to see what the very just bog standard setting is like. Very interested to put some names to faces and such. So, I guess, of course, as always, original video is linked in the description if you haven't seen it yet for some reason. Corner video will lead to my Let's Play of the day. And yeah, with all that out of the way, let's get this thing started then, shall we?
Some say humanity is nearing the golden age, the possibility of which are at the whims of a coin flip. Hi, hello, welcome back to Lancer, and welcome all of you. Wow. The intro to Lancer. Thank you. Anyway, it was actually because of the flood of people from that and only having one other video on the fall of humanity, I figured I'd have a video talking about just the state of the galaxy as it is when you play. So
very good
that's what
to
we're talking
know.
about.
Very good.
Status of the galaxy. 5016 U. Humanity, colonizing part of the Orion Arm, numbers in the trillions. And let's go through a day of that, a citizen of humanity, if you would.
Yeah, it's a lot of people.
Everything is taken care of. Or at least the base necessities. Outside of that, your wants and your drives are for your own path, not decided through necessity. Housing, done. Food, done. Various other resources. You have things close to Star Trek fabricators, so if anything you need, you just can have it printed. Not literally from energy to matter, but just super advanced 3D printing. You can print mechs.
Okay.
They can scale up quite high. Not Starship high, but quite high. When it comes to farming, automation, I mean that... farming, factories, any kind of construction, everything's automated.
Love the Titanfall.
It's fantastic. You have unlimited access to the OmniNet, a bit of communication between planets and solar systems. You have interstellar travel currently just at the edge of your solar system through a blink gate, taking you to any other heavily populated world within Union space. It's fantastic.
Okay, so we're reaching a Federation levels of living standards here. Now, where does it all start falling apart, given that this is a war game based around fighting mechs? Or is it a war game or just a tabletop, RPG system? I need to actually look that up again.
For someone on a core world.
There we go, okay.
But over 90% of humanity lives in the diaspora. Welcome! You're likely one of the 90%, or more. Probably more. You might be wondering, what's the main difference, and why is one excluded from the other? That just goes to development and Union's little civil war about 400 years ago. But core worlds aren't actually located near each other in space. They're referenced as core worlds based on how close they are to a blink gate, some of which have a blink gate in their system or just at the edge of one. Advanced development, advanced automation, high Union presence, and the upholding of the 3 pillars. Those will be gone in depth.
Okay, so we all shall have their material needs fulfilled. No wall shall stand between worlds. No human shall be held in bondage through forced labor or debt. Oh, okay, very nice. Okay, I'm liking Union already. But wait a second. If these are if these are the tenets that the Union follows, what was the cause of a civil war?
In another video. But a core world is like Earth in Star Trek. Fabricators, everything's taken care of. Money is a foreign concept to an extent. Within Lancer, there is money, but it's just through interstellar trade.
Okay.
If you're just a core world citizen, again, you don't have to worry about anything unless you're going outside of core world. money. But yes, Earth, Star Trek, everything's great. Why do anything else? You've got space travel, easy access to it, fabricators, the best healthcare. That's core world. Now on the diaspora side, may I present to you Pandora.
That's what I thought. Okay.
I'm debating whether it's even an exaggeration or not. It's possible. It is possible. Yeah, you even got the megacorps.
Jeez. Man, just the disparity there. I mean, on one planet, Federation, Star Trek Federation. On the other, Borderlands. Ooh. Oh, God. And they said 90% of people live in the diaspora. Oh, God, that sucks. Ooh.
Dween, Arrakis, Necromunda. All of these could be diasporan worlds, and probably there's a diasporan world close to each of them.
Okay.
Class.
NHP. Now.
Active. Now, let's make this quick. Of the various planetary examples given, those are the extremes. They're kind of to form a scale so you can, shift in between them.
Of course, yeah.
Heavily built up and technologically advanced core world with gate access, and then the near-apocalyptic, post-apocalyptic diasporan world on the far end of the scale.
Okay, well, at the very least, it's not such a very stark change, thank God.
So, the average planets find themselves somewhere on one end or the other in between. In short, it doesn't matter the necessarily technological development, as in the Necromunda case, but just the implementation of the 3 pillars and interstellar ease of access. Though, Union's not leaving them out to dry. They're trying to implement the 3 pillars into various parts of the diaspora and bring all of them into the fold.
Well, that's good at the very least.
There are strings attached.
Of
But
course.
before we move on to said strings and
there
some
always
of,
are.
Space politics, geopolitics, astropolitics,
Yeah, I think that works best.
astropolitics. We move into the third living
Let's be
condition for
xenophobic.
humans. So core world's great, fantastic. You already know the example of Earth from Star Trek. Diasporan, I mean that list is there. Cosmopolitan are shipborne and ship living. Because space travel is still bound mostly to relativistic travels, and shipping needs to happen all over the place and can take lifetimes. A lot of people and separate cultures have developed entirely based on ships, which from the outsider's perspective, they live for centuries upon centuries, but due to shattered flows of time, or real time as it's referenced, or their disconnection from it, really for them it was only 7-year trip, where it was 70 for everyone else outside.
Right, yeah, because the closer you get to the speed of light, the slower time, well, the slower you experience time.
Side of it, leaving a lot of cosmopolitans very distant, either not attaching themselves to local culture, or if they ever do visit the same place again, having this shock. I think time shock is what it was referenced as, or false time stress. I forget the exact definition of it, but there's an entire section of worlds or resorts dedicated to retiring cosmopolitans, which are all frozen in certain states of time technologically and culturally in certain areas, just to ease them back into real time. And when
Jeez, can you imagine that? You're a time travel, well, essentially almost a time traveler, and you have to go to a resort that's based in the 1800s, so that you, that concept, that's fun. I love that. I mean, granted, it would suck for the people, but still, that's really cool.
it comes to players, cultures, and interest groups, there are some, which I will be covering a bit later, a bit more in depth. But we had the Megacorps previously, IPSN, or IPS North Star. They're the 30% stakeholders of all Union shipping. They are very much cosmopolitan.
Okay,
Smith's Shimano
yeah.
Corpo kind of live in the Omninet, we'll touch on that. And then, well, Horus is just wherever Omninet-wise as well. Harrison Armories has its world and the Purview, its own internal management of diasporan worlds. On behalf of Union, it's all legal.
Uh-huh.
It's all legal. Wait, no, I'm trying to... No, it's... It operates in what's called the gray, because Union can't be everywhere, and a Union Navy coming to a system might take decades to centuries, depending on how far it is in the diaspora. So the gray, this is a mix of legal tape because the bureaucracy of Union, while it's most powerful, both in Cradle and on a core world, the further out you get from where its actual legal strengths are, the bureaucracy gets messier, muddier as it goes to various other local rulers of...
Okay, so I have to. So obviously, the whole thing with like being a core world is your proximity to a gate. So you have. So I mean, given that they have gates, so they're able to produce them. But I'm guessing it's one of those things where it's like. It's one of those like basically a long lead item where it takes a while to make or transport to an area before it's actually usable. Yeah, that would definitely do it.
Some kind or another, or management. It's within these legal loopholes that a lot of different groups can do things that are directly against the pillars. It's kind of left up in what's called the gray. So mercenaries, megacorps, letting other independent, breaking of the three pillars just to make sure everything functions and stays in a relative peace so Union could get on moving. They're not going to be left out to dry forever, but for a lot of diasporans, waiting centuries or generations or potentially another 1,000 years before core world status isn't worth it waiting. So even with Union acting as this larger force, you still have plenty of grabs for Empire and small interstellar kingdoms, which do succeed and get territory for a bit. While Union doesn't try to promote a navy. Well, okay, let's talk about Union's power, on what actually does keep a bit of a hold and why Union is kind of ever-present even in the diaspora. One, we're in Third Com, and SecCom was the one that set up a lot of the diaspora through its wave of colonization, but it didn't really care.
Oh,
Alongside
okay.
that, Union's civil war from SecCom to Third Com took place for 30 years and entirely was surrounding core worlds. Occasionally the diasporan world got caught up in it, but for the diasporans, for those 30 years and for the few centuries it took for Third Com to finally rat out other bits of SecCom and bring order back to the outskirts, they were independent and out from underneath the boot of SecCom. So when an organization bearing the same name of Union and the same type of ships and the same type of uniform comes back and says, "We come in peace," a lot of people might not
Believe
be trusting
him?
that. And it might not just be from grabs of power. Some
Okay, so again, I'm gonna definitely want to, what was the Civil War about?
planets and systems and cultures just honestly liked the independence, which comes to fun conflicts. Namely conflicts of interest, culture. I mean, you're talking about trillions of people here. There's no way any of them are agreeing on the same thing. Yes,
Yeah.
I know planets and billions. I don't mean literally individual, but you get it. Conflict, but on how Union
Of course,
keeps power
as you do.
within all of those conflicts and convinces people to become core worlds, even if that means giving up some certain traditions if they don't comply with the three pillars. Union believes in soft power, or Third Com believes in soft power. SecCom did not believe in soft power, nor did First Com.
Again, what are all these comms? I want info. You're holding back on me.
Okay, believe is a strong word for it, because Third Com still has a navy. They just try to use that at the last resort, which can kind of cause more problems by just letting certain conflicts boil over to systems before stepping in.
Okay.
Not to mention also downsizing the Navy after the Civil War. Kinda left space for that Harrison Armory purview, huh? But in that soft power are the assets they control on galactic infrastructure, which, to be fair, they inherited from SecCom, because what Union controls, and in the space you fight in, and why certain diasporan systems can't just say, screw off, within Union space, Union itself controls blink gates. Their construction, management, and defense, which is where a lot of that Navy goes. So sure, Union believes in the freedom of movement, but if you want a gate built closer to your system so it doesn't take a ship centuries to arrive, you might have to start giving in. Then it comes to the Omninet. Union...
Oh god, can you imagine? This is going back, you're one of those like delivery ships that takes like decades or sometimes centuries to travel between systems. And by the time you get to your destination, they've constructed a blink gate, rendering your job delivering between two systems just completely obsolete. God, okay, now that I'm saying that, I want a game where you're like playing, like where the setting is like, where like an ancient generation ship appears like over like a planet, like maybe like a couple of decades or something, or maybe a century even, that like after they've developed like true FTL tech, and you have to try to like integrate them into like normal society now that they've been like on their own for literal centuries or maybe even longer. Oh, that'd be a fun game. There has to be something like that out there. There has to be.
Builds, supports, and maintains partially. Empire-wide, or Union-wide at the very least, as far as we know. Internet, sort of. Omninet, it literally connects all machines, as long as you have connection to it, which is maintained by Union and uses the same technology that the blink gates use, because it's heading through that FTL space. Right, blink gate-wise, think more, instead of instant portal, like Stargate, think, Stargate, honestly. Stargate kind of fits that. I guess it's more webway, because you are entering blink space, like a separate dimension, and then you're popping back out, not instantaneously. But a galaxy-wide or union-wide internet, or omninet, connection to everything. Communication, art, culture, literature, everything. Freedom of communication? Kind of. There are sensors. And thirdly, mana.
Of course, because there always are.
Not the magic mana. No.
Mana? What?
Or not magica. Look, mana, M-A-N-N-A, is a currency and currency system developed by Union and maintained by Union.
Okay, so that's the money he was talking about earlier. Okay.
For interstellar trade. While individual planets, namely in the diaspora, have whatever currency is local, and maybe dozens, hundreds, I mean, look at Earth. Whenever you're trading with a ship or a cosmopolitan, it's done in mana, because under Union, any system that's technically under Union, whenever you're trading any of those resources, you do it in mana. Which is picked up by cosmopolitans because mana is accepted in any system under Union. Mana itself is based on
a lot of buying power,
bunch of calculations on the system it's in, the people, how it's developed, how close it is to core world status. And when it comes to people from the core worlds and dealing with mana, again, it's only for interstellar trade. On your own world, everything's taken care of. But those three are the core pillars of Union soft power, that interstellar infrastructure, which there are groups of humanity which don't fall under that or try to not use it that much. And when it comes to actual force and navy, Union can't be everywhere, which is where the current conflict, which started 16 years before the setting of the game, so 5,000 U, the Second Distal War. An Onic fleet, the Onic people.
The Onic?
Empire outside of Union that's figured out things close to blink space, weird telepathy, weird space magic stuff.
Okay, so Dune. Okay, judging by the... Okay, so the Federation versus the Dune Empire. Okay, not a matchup I thought I'd ever see. Interesting.
Crusading fleet has been found in Boundary Garden, where a bunch of refugees from their empire are currently within Union space. Oh no.
Great.
That's the current conflict that's occupying Union, which leaves a lot of the diaspora for the open. Not to mention the conflicts that were already still raging from the fall of Setcom. Harrison Armory taking advantage, the investments in Dawnline Shore with their conflict boiling up again with the Karakin trade baronies. Not to mention the power grabs from both IPSN on the necessary shipping for such a war front and the various other planets and systems that are trying to build up resources within the meantime. Rebels, hackers, crime syndicates, warlords. Union's eyes are currently focused on the Onic border and Boundary Garden. The diaspora's open.
Okay. That's, again, the whole thing, Federation level tech. All your needs, absolutely taken care of. Of course, it was too good to be true. You'd think, with being stretched so comparatively thin, you'd think that Union, would start expanding their military capabilities, so they're not so they don't fall into the whole thing. I was like, oh, if I focus on this one thing, literally everything else falls to the wayside. I mean, that's just horrible planning.
Hence, the coin flip. ThirdCom has ambitions. ThirdCom wants to spread and make as many core worlds as possible, following the three pillars. Humanity's been separated, split, and spread over a wide region. And even though on a core world everything's taken care of and resources are abundant, in the diaspora, that just isn't the case. And people in the diaspora think Union is foolish for thinking anything like that's possible.
Even though it's already existing, but, neither here nor there.
In any case, Union, in the space you're playing in, has quite the power hold inherited from the foundations and burning of Setcom. They've built up what they could, and are trying to fix the pieces. But even its own internal politics are striving different directions. While the interest groups, including a more fleshed out version of Union and its own mess of bureaucracy, of the various groups,
no, not bureaucracy!
Give a rough summary of the Karakin trade baronies. Medieval sci-fi houses, industrial barons, actually have the keys to Union's vast wealth. Materially, that is.
Oh.
But on top of that,
that's
yes,
not good.
as said just previously, these various groups are going to get their own videos, but right now, it's just knowing they exist is what this video is about. We'll just be talking about... They'll get their own video. Right now, we're just going to talk about some of the tech. You know, what your daily life is like. So, we already mentioned Blink Gates, OmniNet, Mana. You got those. Those are interstellar foundations. When it comes to just your life to an extent, printers or fabricators or whatever other name you want for it. It's not necessarily like Star Trek fabricators, again, not energy to matter, but
just
3D printing
super
on a
advanced
scale.
3D printers, yeah.
Crazy. You can print a full mech. It takes a long time, but you can print a full mech. Though these printers don't get that large, to an extent that starships still have to be built manually, or at least parts can be fabricated with these printers, but they have to still be put together and managed. Same thing with cities, you can't build that in a day, but you can build it quite fast if you have automation with you. Due to SecCom and its very, very frequent use of cloned soldiers, cloning's a thing. We can go all in depth on that, but to this point, clone citizens are a thing. Depending on where you are, politics get weird with that, we'll touch on those. Gene altering came from it, which even post-birth gene editing, quite nice, helps fix genetic medical conditions. You can entirely change just cosmetic things if you want. There's plenty of weird people that have just changed everything. Also, when it comes to medicine, just parts of your body can be perfectly cloned, an organ that it won't reject and is a perfect healthy replica of what you are just losing. AI and NHPs, briefly. NHP is a complicated thing enough, that's getting its own video. But
oh god, I mean, just again, it's all of this stuff. Granted, I mean, he did say that, like, 90% of humanity lived in diaspora, and the diaspora can range from, Pandora to, just under a core world. But, the more I hear about this, the more I'm willing to say maybe I'd want to live in this universe just for the fact of that 1 in 10 chance of potentially living on a core world. Because this sounds so good.
But AI, basic, what's called a CompCon, concierge unit, and I forget the other word. Computing concierge unit? Anyway, think Jarvis. Honestly, Jarvis is not a bad example.
That makes
it's
sense.
AI from today stretched to its limit. AI and Lancer itself, like base AI, again, NHPs, we'll touch on those, have kind of reached a stopgap. They can't really stretch any farther. They've reached their peak. They actually had a physical limit. Still farther from where we are today, AI-wise, but they do have a limit. That's where NHPs come in. Non-human persons. It is an intelligence, that's why it's not artificial, but it isn't human. NHPs, again,
wonderful.
That, Eldritch Math, Cthulhu in a computer sort of thing, Pocket Dimension,
Eldritch
cloud
Math.
storage, glitchy anime girl. You can train them and program them to an extent, and most of them are clones off of a base foundation and developed and focused along a certain path, but you can have them be not governing, you can have them managing entire cities, infrastructure, entirely with 1 NHP. They do need to be cycled, because if they're left to run on their own for too long, without any supervision, they get a bit...
weird?
What's called a cascade. They start warping reality.
And I thought the rampancy in Halo was bad. Okay, again, not the biggest Halo fan, but like in Halo, AIs have like basically a lifespan of just under a decade, basically. And, the rampancy comes from them basically thinking themselves to death. But this not an AI, the non-human person, but I'm just going to use AI for the simplicity of it. If you have an AI that you need to keep a watch on because it'll start warping the fabric of reality? Oh god, what? Eldritch Math. Well, it's the Eldritch Math. Why? Why does Cthulhu need to be a mathematician?
Because they're not held in that cloud pocket anymore. But anywho, fantastic AI to an extent. Used for ship computing, ship combat, anything that's just way too complex or can't really trust a CompCon unit be able to handle with
Okay, also, I just thought, what do you mean by cycled? Do you mean like just turning them off and on again, or do you mean replaced with a fresh one?
precision. And as long as it's cycled, it's fine. And the
What
casket
does that
doesn't break.
mean? Casket?
As long as the casket doesn't break. What's Eidolon? Cybernetics! Yep.
The casket? Oh, okay. Wonderful. Great. Fantastic.
They exist. I mean, oh god. In fact, they were way more popular and greatly used before the advancement of cloning technology under SecCom, and later redeveloped on a third com, but the foundation for them still existed, and there's a bunch of groups that are androidists, or techno-cults. The idea that either it's just a fashion statement, some touch on transhuman rights, because yeah, transhumanism is just a hot button topic, or not hot button topic, it's just a thing that exists, because you have gene altering, cloning, and again, androidism and cybernetics that can almost entirely replace someone. The only thing you don't have is D-Corp, which was already a thing trying to be developed under SecCom. Transhumanism is a readily available subject within modern Lancer. In fact, there's various groups that entirely full-heartedly believe or try to pursue it, some to a detriment, which in some cases has only provoked them further to try it. Not to mention syncing, or like neural bridges, so mind-to-computer interface, which is how a lot of the mechs actually pilot themselves. There are manual controls to an extent, but half and half. You can go deeper, you can like wire yourself into a system if you wanted to, but you don't need to. It's more like Titanfall, where you lock into the chair with your helmet built into the side of it. It's already scanned you, has your imprint, you can activate it. But
Okay, so we're not dealing with, Dreadnought level here, but okay. Well, I mean, it is an option, but still, okay. Jeez, this is getting weird.
there's still manual controls on the inside. And honestly, that's just kind of the generic version of mech. Because of how widespread chassis are, they can be, and preferences from pilots, the insides can look like anything, really.
Yeah, of
SSC
course.
especially are interesting in their piloting of mechs.
Why the boob mask? Why the boob mask?
The chassis themselves, they are not just for war. In fact, there are plenty of just urban use chassis for construction equipment. It gets into the idea that because of that mental link to an extent, or even the basic manual controls, a human piloting something understands a human shape, or at least something close to animalistic. I'm looking at you, Swallowtail. But no, you have mech chassis, you have cybernetics, gene-altering, cloning, FTL, internet that can span parts of the galaxy. It's not that bad. Fabricators, printers.
No, it sounds pretty good.
Still studying field, we'll say, of paracausal tech. So paracausal tech isn't used too often. NHBs technically count within that realm, but paracausal tech, because it's actively breaking reality around it.
Okay, so paracausal. So is this like weird time travel tech where it's like a weapon, but like when you shoot somebody with it, like it causes them to not even be born in the first place? So there's a whole thing of who were you shooting at in the first place. So you're basically kind of like grandfather paradoxing your own enemy. Is that what's happening here?
To be able to function? It's an obtuse study, we'll say.
I would imagine, yes.
But it's not everywhere. In fact, that is the close to like a super weapon or magic item equivalent. It's used in some day-to-day things to an extent, but you wouldn't never really see it, and not an average civilian can just go like, oh shoot, I'm gonna go set up a gun that doesn't exist. Unless Horus gets to them. I'm now thinking, because usually the Horus angle is through a pilot or Lancer angle, I'm now thinking of someone on a core world printing a car, and it's Pegasus.
What is that? Why does it walks on all fours, but all fours are hands? Why? I hate this. I hate Horus. I hate it. Please get it away from me.
That's a screwed up car. Stasis as well, which kind of uses that paracausal tech. Not necessarily just straight up cryo freezing, but almost closer to like the Warhammer kind of stasis, where there's some other tech we don't quite understand being used to just slow down time within the inside of it, or practically freeze it. And
granted, that does sound, at least better than, cryogenic technology, because again, I think something I literally just learned a couple of days ago was that apparently, I think all but one cryogenically frozen people that were frozen before 1990 have been thawed and just thrown out because the companies that were holding onto them have like just they filed for bankruptcy and they just had to get rid of the human bodies somehow. And like that train, that continuation, from what I've heard, seems to be a running trend with cryogenics. So yeah, don't set about freezing yourself because you might just be thrown out with the trash.
Anti-gravity tech also being studied. Oh, that's a good one. Anti-gravity. A lot of stations and ships still use just
Centrifugal force?
Centrifugal force, if I'm remembering correctly. You know, the spinning station, spinning ring on a ship, or just relying on thrusters and movement. Because while artificial gravity does exist, it's not to the level of, let's say, Mass Effect yet. It's there in small quantities, even used in some weapons. I'm looking at you, Harrison Armory. Hi, Barbarossa. Okay. But right now, it is just such a power-intensive system and unstable. It's generally preserved for high-speed maneuvers of a ship, you know, stuff that's like, oh, hi, we're going a fraction of the speed of light. You better buckle in and get into the designated gravity field before we turn. Nah, NL jumps are dangerous. Lethal if you do not have any...
Oh god, yeah, I didn't think of that. Because obviously, if you do the turn gentle enough, I mean, you'd probably feel, you know, basically, you know, if you're turning sharply in a car. But if you did a sharp turn going at a fraction of the speed of the light, you might go fast enough just to go straight through the hull and just be obliterated into a fine mist. Oh god, it's all these like sci-fi series in sci-fi settings that make me think of just how scary the universe actually is.
Kind of protection like anti-grav. But it's still there in small amounts, just very power intensive, so it can't be used everywhere. Or for long times. Brief bursts, ship maneuvers, safety, pushing something off the ground for a brief moment, and some weapons. It is, however, an active field of study. EVA suits, I'm forgetting the acronym at the moment, it's probably over here, are everywhere. They're the kind of, not the end result, but where spacesuits have gone. In fact, hard suits are where the initial developments towards mechs, because it did require some kind of power source and external exoskeleton. But spacesuits, that's extremely protective, as in, like, yeah, you can have sharp metal hit the side of it. It's probably still going to hold. A lot of them are more specialized here and there, but generally, it's sleeker. You can still have bulkier versions, armored-wise and combat-wise, but it's not going to instantly just vacuum if something goes wrong. What's another one? Ah, cold fusion. Yes, cold fusion generators.
That's a thing. Okay.
Any big sci-fi nerd or just tech person? Cold fusion. Cold fusion is just such a milestone. In fact, it's what all the chassis use. And over the hundreds of years after the initial mechs, they've been downsized greatly.
Okay. So all of the mechs are powered by cold fusion. Okay, there's certainly something.
That's how you get the half-size mechs, and what makes them different from just a hard suit. They've got a reactor on board. Honestly, I'm kind of dawdling here. There's probably a few other bits of small tech and stuff, but I think I hit the big points that showed to, like... I did forget one. Nanites. The actual capabilities of such can range from knitting ship holes together or knitting wounds back on someone. They can also... The true capabilities for any of these technologies are wildly varied and kind of
I would imagine,
on its full implementation and how advanced it actually is. So tech-wise, I think we've rounded up, and we already covered the Diasporan, Cosmopolitan, and Core Worlds. Or Metropolitan, they're Metropolitan. The current Distal War, the current conflict heading over at Dawnline Shore, this little funny planet over here called Earth. And then when you want to go to individual conflicts here and there, like the Ungratefuls, that goes to several of the field guides, the other books, the campaigns. Some of the major events that are kind of the need to know, we kind of covered here. AKA the Distal War and the effects in the Dawnline Shore. Hope that helped both on the summary of the planets so you can, and the technology, so you can kind of get an idea of like some of the astropolitics and what your average like separate world or diasporan city might be like, or some of the tech that could be available and the certain, let your world building mind go crazy. Also, as a player, allows you to kind of picture where your pilot is a bit better. And if you like the video, like, subscribe, share it to your friends, and I hope I made this to be able to be shared to both people getting into the setting and also to players and giving them a better idea of
No, it definitely gave me a better...
In short, I hope the video helped. Anyways. Now I can slow down.
I swear. Grant, I mean, I in my last reaction... to one of these, I was comparing, well, basically more on time, but like, you know, comparing this to like Warhammer 40k, and like, I'd almost say this is like, granted, I mean, like, the full extent of what was the golden age of technology in 40k, we're not entirely sure. But like, I'm almost imagining just with like the upper limits of some of the stuff, especially, you know, given the Eldritch Math AIs, that almost sounds like almost exactly what I imagined the golden age of technology was. You know, I can't wait to watch the next one, because this one's going to be actually, you know, talking about mechs, and, you know, I believe the next one in the playlist is the IPSN, Blue Collar Mechs. So yeah, that'll definitely be fun to check out. So yeah, that'll be it for now. So yeah, of course, as always, recent videos linked in the description if you haven't seen it for some reason. And yeah, I hope you guys liked. If you did, leave a like, subscribe if you have not, and I'll see you guys next time. Goodbye.